Welcome to my guide to fearless handstands. Handstands are a great activity for a lot of different reasons. If you're watching this video, I won't belabor the point, but a few specific reasons that I like to practice handstands. They're a great form of fitness and physical activity. They're a really interesting way to look at the learning process and the incremental progression that results in seemingly impossible goals. You can take them anywhere. You don't need fancy equipment or expensive classes in order to learn to do a handstand and to get better every single day. You can practice handstands for the rest of your life. They're a great thing to impress people with. And most of all, handstands are so much fun. I didn't grow up doing gymnastics or grow up in the circus. I actually discovered handstands at about 17 years old after 10 years as a runner. I saw a little girl doing cartwheels, remembered that I had known how to do cartwheels when I was 5, and set out to learn first to do cartwheels and then to balance upside down. I was not given a progression towards any goal with handstands. I realized over the course of about 10 years of practice that handstands can actually be a part of a sequence, and that when they're practiced consistently with incremental goals day by day, you can actually achieve results much faster. For me, the result that I'm currently working towards is balancing a 60-second one-armed handstand. The typical path that we all take with handstands is one of failure. You've probably had some sort of fitness instructor, maybe a yoga instructor, just have you try to kick up to a handstand. If you're lucky, against a wall or with a partner, but more commonly just on an open floor. And invariably, we fall out of it, are afraid, and never try again. Instead, I'm out to teach the atypical path to learning a fearless handstand. And you can actually learn handstands very quickly through this progression. It starts with getting comfortable being upside down. Practice having your feet on the ground and your hands on the ground at the same time. And just this is often pretty radical for most people because we don't spend time with our head close to the floor. Practice walking on all fours. Practice the sensation of having more blood in your head than you're used to and having that head rush and not being afraid of it. Once you're used to your hands and your feet on the floor at the same time, you can practice moving around. Even make a game of it. I like to take a soccer ball and kick the soccer ball between my hands and my feet as I'm moving around in this position on all fours. Wrist exercises are an essential component to your handstand training. I wasn't taught how to prep the wrists prior to handstands. And so now, every single day that I practice handstands, I spend about 5 minutes preparing my wrists in advance. There's 4 different activities that I suggest alternating between, and I will generally do 3 sets of 10 reps of any 2 of these exercises before I go to practice my handstands. The first exercise is wrist press-ups or wrist push-ups. So you put your hands flat on the ground. You have your arms straight, about shoulder height, just under your shoulders. And you can do this from your knees, like an assisted push-up, or from your feet, if you're strong enough to do that. You lift your thumbs up off the ground, and then you press through your fingers, leaving your fingers on the ground, but lifting your wrists up off the ground. I recommend doing 10 of these. The next exercise is eagle push-ups. And for this, I'll do this from my knees. I have seen people actually do this from their feet. But you take the back of your wrists and place them on the ground and do a push-up, bringing your nipples and your nose towards the ground or touching the ground, and then straightening all the way through the arms. And do this 10 times. The next exercise I call thumb jujitsu. You take the back of your hand on the floor, grab your thumb with the opposite hand, and rotate at the wrist, straightening your arm all the way through the entirety of the time. And do this on both sides, at least 10 times each. The final wrist warm-up are fist wrist rolls. So you take both hands and make them into fists, and then put your knuckles together and put the back of both fists on the ground. Start with your elbows touching the ground, and then straighten your arms as much as you can while keeping your fists connected and the back of your hands on the ground. I can't quite lengthen all the way through my arms, but that's ultimately the goal, is to be able to fully straighten your arms while keeping your wrists together. As important as doing any of these exercises though, having some time where your hands are on the floor, the palms of your hands, the backs of your hands, your wrists in motion, helps prepare you physically and mentally for the strain of carrying your entire body weight on your hands. After you've prepared your wrists, the next step is the progressions, from moving around on all fours to gently beginning to bring more of your weight into your hands, arms, and shoulders. A word on safety: always, when you're going towards being upside down, keep your arms fully straight and your elbows locked. Press through your elbows and through your shoulders at all times. The most common way that people come out of a handstand is collapsing because their elbows bend. And while eventually you could learn to do handstand push-ups, the first step to learning handstands safely is building a very rigid body and a very secure position for your arms. As you begin the progression of doing more and more handstands, you can kick up, but do so without the goal of maintaining a balanced handstand. Don't worry about your handstands, that will come. The goal, just like a child learning to walk, is bringing more and more of your weight into your arms safely, comfortably, and happily. A word about pain. If you're in pain, stop. For handstands to become a lifetime skill and something that you get better at over time as much as you want to, it's necessary to stop when you are in pain. Wrist pain, elbow pain, shoulder pain, these are all common, probably wrist pain being the most common. If it hurts, don't do it. Take a day off, take a week off, and come back to this activity later. There are a lot of different ways to learn to mount into a handstand. And because I think variation is a useful way to learn, I suggest practicing all of them. Most commonly when people use a wall, they kick up against a wall such that their back is facing the wall when they're upside down. And that works well, especially gives you a chance to really practice lengthening through the arms and extending through the shoulders. Another less common approach to practicing a handstand against a wall is climbing up the wall such that your belly and your face the wall when you're upside down. And this is more useful because it helps you become aware of the position that you actually want to be holding, the lengthening through the body, the tight pelvis and tight abs necessary to hold a handstand permanently or for a long period of time. When you're kicking up against a wall, you want to kick up gently, know where the wall is in advance, and do so such that you don't damage your heels or the wall. And then you want to come out of it, not because you literally can't hold yourself up anymore and collapse, but come out gently and slowly and safely. I recommend learning to kick up against a wall as a completely separate skill unto itself. So spend a couple of days or even a couple of weeks practicing, maybe just a few times a day, kicking up against a wall, keeping your elbows straight, pushing through your shoulders, until this becomes a skill that can then add to the rest of your handstand training. One final note, in kicking up against a wall, you can also do so from a cartwheel. This is easier when you're facing towards the wall, when you're upside down. But you can, rather than climb step by step up against a wall, you can actually cartwheel into that same position. It's just another way to practice getting into the mount. Finally, if you have a partner that you can work with, a great way to practice is having your partner support you and stand in a certain place and be ready to really support and catch, so you don't have to worry about where the wall is in this case, because your partner is providing the wall. You can kick up and they'll hold you and maybe even support you if you start to collapse, and then you come down out of it in the same way that you went back up. So if you have a partner, particularly who is strong and can support your body weight, that's another great way to practice getting used to being upside down. There are three most common different types of handstands. The gymnastics or circus handstand, which involves your arms fully straight and locked, and usually looking at the ground in between your hands. Your body is hollow, and usually the toes are pointed. The breakdance handstand, which may or may not be a balance, but usually has the legs and pelvis in a splayed or artistic way. And then the capoeira handstand, which involves looking through your arms and shoulders at a partner. Thanks for watching this beginner's guide to how to balance a fearless handstand. It's so important that handstands are learned as a progression and not through failure after failure or injury after injury. This is just the very beginning of what to attend to as you're learning to balance a handstand. Stay tuned for our next videos for some intermediate tips and a step-by-step breakdown as to what you can do every day to learn to balance your own fearless handstand.